Hello, fellow writers. I'm Lewis. That over there is Tolkien, and you have found the Scripturian Society.
Welcome back, everybody, to your favorite writing podcast by writers for writers. If you're watching on YouTube, you're going to witness my mic slowly sinking lower and lower and lower because I'm not using my typical mic. So hopefully my audio will be better today. Basically, today's test is going to show you, if you guys have been here for the last couple episodes, you've heard Karissa sound beautiful and clear and angelic, and my audio has been weird. She's like, just to prove my point. Anyways, so I'm trying to determine this episode if that issue is with my other microphone or with something I'm doing wrong. So if the audio sounds beautiful on my side in this episode, then it's not my fault and I need a new microphone. If it sounds bad, then I'm an idiot. That's basically it, because I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I've only been doing this for like a year and a half now. So you'd think I would have the hang of it. Also, my mic stand is also in need of some TLC, so she's sinking. So anyways, that over there is Karissa Harlow. She is your Lewis. I almost called you Tolkien. She's your Lewis. She is my Lewis. She's not necessarily the rest of the world's Lewis. That's C.S. Lewis, but
yeah, that's true. You guys can
Lewis
pick him as your primary Lewis. That's okay.
She'll forgive you. It's okay. She'll accept it. I am Ash O'Rourke, aka Tolkien. I am the Tolkien to nobody but Karissa, but I will still take it.
Good enough for me.
Definitely. So how has your week been, Lewis?
Oh, my week has been so good. I have so much to talk about. Well, I have one thing to talk about. We got our first puppy. She's so adorable. So if you guys have forgotten or didn't listen to the episode where I talked about this before, her name is Aurora. I know, right? You need to be keeping up on my life. This is your job. So her name is Aurora, and she's like basically totally black, except she has a little bit of white like under her chin and on her chest.
Aww, that's cute.
Yeah, she's a Bernedoodle, and we brought her home yesterday. And by we, I mean me and my parents, if anyone is curious. I'm not married or anything.
Me and my secret lover.
Yeah, no, not that. And so like I got to hold her in the car, and when we first took her, I think she was a little like confused because she was kind of and trying to get away and stuff, and I was like, it's fine, everything's okay. And then she fell asleep, and when we got her like home and we took her into the backyard, she was good. Like her tail has not stopped wagging since. Aww. And she's so cute. She already has a favorite toy, and she has been very good like potty training wise. Like she has not had an accident in the house yet. So I mean, knock on wood,
our 2-year-old dog, who was already house trained when we got her, she had an accident on the floor her first day here. And say, I'm already potty trained. She's in here with me. We also have a live studio audience for the first time, but he's not listening. Yay. He's got his headphones on. Hoppy's gaming in the corner over there. So that's that, and Brownie, who is kind of paying attention.
Nice. She'll learn about how to write.
Yeah, because that matters for her a lot. Actually, she's staring at the door like she just can't wait to get back out. Are you gonna cry though if you go out and then you want to come back in? No, she's looking at me like, I don't know what you're saying, but I'm listening to you and only you.
I know, it's so weird. I'm like, whenever Aurora does something wrong, like she'll like chew on things she's not supposed to, and I'm trying to reason with her, and like, you can't do that. She's a puppy.
Yeah, I absolutely do that 100%. Yeah. I still do it.
And I'm like, here, you can take your toy. Yeah, like exactly. This is a logical household. You cannot do that, and here's why. And she's like, I don't know what you're saying. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing until you force me away.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly. Of course.
Yep.
Well, anything else exciting besides sweet puppy? And you're getting the other puppy soon too, right?
Yeah, on Monday. So
Sweet.
just a little less than a week.
So close to being a 2-puppy household. Oh, we're also going to be a 2-puppy household.
Really?
Yeah, because I don't know if I mentioned on here or not. I might have already. You guys are like, this is old news, Ash. But we had talked about getting a Doberman puppy. We were going to name Toretto because Fast and Furious, and I love that name. But then we went to Easter at Hobby's aunt's place. She lives out on this ranch, and one of her dogs just had a litter of like 9 puppies, and they're so cute, and they're looking for homes for them. So they're just like farm dogs. So they're just like kind of like a mix of a couple different dogs, like medium sized. Right. And there's this one big fat puppy, and he's like one of 2 boys. And because Hobby gets to pick the next animal, because I always pick girls, he wants a boy animal. Nice. And so after looking at the cost of purchasing a Doberman, which is a lot of money, by the way.
Yeah.
Also, there's just not a lot of them around here near us. So maybe we're just not in like the hot spot for Dobermans. I don't know.
Right.
He was like, okay, maybe we'll get the fat one. And that we'll name that one Toretto. And that also, anyway, so now we still have to wait till the puppy's older to actually bring him home. But
right.
Exciting. So we'll be a 2-pup household. And he's a little thing compared to a grown dog. Compared to the other puppies, he's easily twice their size.
Right.
It's so funny. Anyways, very cute.
Puppies are so cute.
They really are. I hope everyone listening, hopefully we're making you guys want to go get a puppy.
I will say I am already kind of wiped out and tired because she's, like she wants to run around and then she'll nap and I'm like, great, I can get stuff done. But then by the time I'm ready to sleep, she's like, okay, playtime. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So
you're like, no, this
to get
is
used to that
time. Yeah.
I mean, she was mostly okay last night, but she was kind of restless. She'd like sleep for half an hour and then get up and move and then go to sleep again. Like she was looking for her brothers and everything. So,
oh, that's sweet.
Sad. But
Brownie girl was an inside dog always before we got her. And now since getting here, I was afraid that she was going to be really anxious because she is anxious and she has separation anxiety and she's addicted to people. But something has changed in the last day where now she would prefer to be outside. This is the first time for most of the day that she's been inside for like more than like a few minutes. She's just decided she wants to be an outside dog, which we live on a farm, so I'm sure it's heavenly for her. But yeah,
she's like, now I have the opportunity to be an outside dog and I will take it.
She's like, I secretly have always been an outside dog, except for when I want love. Except the thing is she doesn't listen when she's outside. So when she's outside, she's completely ungovernable. It's horrible.
She just does her own thing.
She does. Yeah. You'll be like calling her name or trying to like give her commands that she knows. And she'll just look off in the distance. And you're like, girl, what is happening? And she can hear everything.
She's like, I'm living the dream.
Yeah. She's like, get out of my dream. This is amazing. Yeah. She's sleeping, looking like a little angel right now. But anyways, anything else happened this week?
Nope. That's the main event. So,
it's a pretty big and exciting main event.
It is. How about you?
Well, today I picked up rocks in the front yard.
Fun.
Well, we're trying to, we want to like plant some clover lawns instead of like traditional grass lawns. And the problem is there's just sand everywhere and also rocks. So the front yard has like some grass, some sand, and just a ton of rocks. And so to till up that area, we have to get the rocks out. And I cannot think of any way to do it except by hand. So we use the pitchfork to kind of like rake them all together kind of and like pop them out of the dirt. And then I just like, some of them, like when Javi came out and helped me for 5 minutes, of course, we worked like 10 times as fast because he's, taller than the pitchfork is my height. So trying, first of all, to use the pitchfork is difficult because I'm not that strong to begin with. I'm out of practice living on a farm and it's also my height. So I have zero leverage whatsoever. Right. So it just went so slowly when it was just me. But so when it was just me, I was also like just crouching on the ground and scooping handfuls of rocks into the buckets and then carrying the buckets. So that was what I did with my lunch break today. And we still have like half the yard to do, but I'll try and finish it tomorrow. Anyways, that's what I've done this week.
How fun.
Yeah, it's thrilling. It's genuinely just thrilling. But I don't think anything else.
It's one of those problems that like I feel like I should have some kind of easy solution. Like, oh Ash, you just need to do this, but I do not. I don't know anything about yards or rocks.
Well, see, I keep trying to think of like there has to be some like shortcut to this. And I cannot think of a single shortcut. I'm like, the rocks have to get out of the yard. How can we do it? And I thought of like every single tool or like thing I could turn into a tool at our disposal. And the best I could come up with was raking it with a pitchfork. Like that was the best I could come up with. And I mean, it's better than just like trying to scoop them with my hands the whole time, but not considerably. At least we only do this once. And all of the rocks that we like get out of the yard we're keeping and we're going to put around the duck pond in the future. So we're going to reuse them, which is exciting. I love to reuse things. Anyways, it's been a thrilling week on the farm, you guys. It's Wednesday? Cool.
Yeah.
I've been dreaming about chicken food and I've been dreaming about painting the walls. So my brain is full like house farm mode. But and
Cool.
this weekend is the Strawberry Festival. So next week I'll get to
Oh.
tell you guys about that. But I'm going to a Strawberry Festival and I'm very excited.
Cool. Is that like an annual thing?
Out in Poteet, there is, every year there's like a big strawberry festival. So I guess like it's like I don't know about their main export, but like Poteet, Texas is just known for their strawberries. So they have like a huge festival and everything is strawberry flavored. And I think there's like rides, it's like a carnival type thing. So I'm very excited. And I think there's going to be like some bands out there. So I just want to go get like strawberry pie. And I want some weird strawberry concoction that they're gonna like, because fairs always have stuff that you're like, I never would have thought of that.
Right.
I want one of those. And if there's any kind of alcohol with strawberry in it, and I certainly hope there is, I want that also.
I believe there should be. That seems
right?
like
it seems
that's a
like
thing.
it.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyways, that's pretty much it though. So
nice. Now I'm thinking about like deep fried strawberries.
Ooh.
Would that be good? Unclear.
I have no idea. Now, if they were deep fried and topped with ice cream, 100%.
Yeah.
You need like two of the cold things together.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, you'll have to tell us how that goes. That sounds cool.
I'll give you guys all the deets on Strawberry Festival.
It's cool.
But anyways, back to our intended topic. What are book recs? I was gonna ask for a word of the week, but what are any book recs you have?
Nothing. I'll reiterate Illumini or whatever it is. I loved the memes you posted today, by the way. They were hilarious.
Thank you.
Especially that first one with Aiden's to-do list. Gold.
It was good. There are some great memes that I think are from later in the series because I was like, oh, I can tell this is hysterical, but I haven't actually read the book yet, so I can't post it, but I could tell that it was funny.
Yeah. Like, yes, can't wait for this.
Yes, exactly.
Otherwise, I have not read anything. I mean, I haven't read that recently either, but I'm not behind. I'm behind on my reading goal because I've been so distracted with the puppy and then I'm in a puppy and the book I'm writing. And so it's just been not reading time. So I'm going to have like a couple weeks coming up where I just do nothing but read.
Well, those are very good reasons to take a break from reading.
They are. I mean, they're not, I'm not necessarily complaining about it. It's just I set these stupid, like unimportant goals for myself, like read 12 books a month. And then when I start to
crazy goals.
Yeah. And like, I can normally do it, but the fact that I'm trying to be so consistent about it is just crazy hard for me. Like I'm the kind of person that will read a book a day for like a month and then I'll read nothing for 2 months. So it's just weird for me to try to be consistent. And I know this should not bother me and I should not care. And it is not a big deal.
No.
So I'm trying to let it go and just read when I want to.
It's not a reflection of your worth, okay? As a writer or as a reader. I think you've really proven yourself in both arenas. So
it's true. So much of my life has been, what are you good at? Reading. So gotta be cool with not necessarily meeting every goal. Like, by the way, I did not meet my goal to finish my work in progress before the puppy got here. So I was like, you need to calm down. It's fine. You have plenty of time to write this book. It was a self-imposed deadline that has no meaning.
I get so upset about my self-imposed deadlines. I'm like, oh my God, the world is going to end. And then I'm like, I did set that deadline for myself. I could just push it up. And I'm like, no, you can't. The like little shadow Muppet version of me, like it's like, but maybe you're a failure because you didn't meet your deadline. Actually,
maybe you suck.
Maybe you're garbage.
No, it's the worst. And you're like, wait, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, you're like, wait, there's like literally no practical consequence at all to me not meeting that deadline.
Yeah, and like normally, I know authors joke a lot about how writers are really bad at meeting deadlines. Normally, I'm so good about meeting deadlines. This is not going to be a problem for me in real life. Like for most, like 99% of the time, it's not a problem for me. So when it does become a problem, it feels so much bigger, even though like I should give myself a pass for the 1% of the time. So it's nothing. But
I'm great at setting deadlines for things that I like. Okay. So like basically if someone's like, hey, this thing is due in 2 weeks, I'll set a deadline for myself to be done with it in 1 week and send it back. And I can do that. And I'm great at that. For some reason, if it's my own deadline I set for myself, it's like my brain is like in the back of my mind sabotaging me because it knows that there's going to be no comeuppance if I don't actually meet the deadline. But I'll still feel just as bad about it as if there was.
Right.
even though I made it. And my brain knows that. And then that's why we missed the deadline, because I've never had this issue with anything else. I am known for turning in my work early, always.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Anyways,
So fun. Anyway,
I don't
your
think
book
I have any
recs.
book recs. Oh,
No?
see, we're so on the same
in sync.
page. It's adorable and romantic. You're like the side eye. I don't think I have any. We're reading A Tree Grows in Brooklyn this week on That Pretentious Book Club. It's big. It's a classic. So that's all I can say about it. I don't know if I can recommend it or not. I believe Kendall's really enjoying it, so she would probably recommend it. The writing style is really good so far, but I haven't gotten through a ton of it. I will reiterate Illuminae though, because I've thought about it every damn day since I read it, because I can't stop thinking about it. And I just want to buy the rest of the series. I'm still living in Illuminae, which is also why I'm like kind of dragging my feet with reading A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, because I just want to like read the rest of the Illuminae series.
I will say I tried to read A Tree Grows in Brooklyn when I was I want to say junior in high school. It is one of the few books I did not finish reading because it was so hard for me. So if it's not your thing, I totally get that. So yeah, it's a tough one.
I appreciate that. I always feel so vindicated when someone else is like, I too struggled with that classic. And I'm like, oh my God, thank God it's not just me. If anyone out there is like, yeah, sometimes I feel like I'm a faker, or I'm like a phony because I don't like classics. You're not. I understand you. Listen, those books were written for a different audience in a different time when they would have been like what our popular fiction is to us. So
yeah, I feel like too,
why.
A Tree Grows in Brooklyn would really resonate with people who live or have lived in New York.
In Brooklyn? Yeah.
Yeah, in Brooklyn specifically, because a lot of the descriptions are like, this is, what it's like. And I'm like, this is so unrelatable. I live in a desert.
Oh, it's true. Yeah, there's nothing like that here. Javi went to Maryland for a work trip recently, and he was like sending me like videos of like the city there. And he was like, this is like another world. I don't even feel like I'm in like the same world anymore, because like all the, even just like the most basic architecture is different. It really is. He's like, I thought this was only in movies. Yeah. Like that's how far removed it is from us. So I think that's probably another reason why I'm like, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. If it was like A Tree Grows in Texas, I'd be like, oh, tell me more. I know like what mesquite trees look like.
Yeah, I can picture this.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, what about our word of the week?
Our word of the week. Okay, speaking of classics, which I didn't do on purpose, I have never read The Crucible either, but interestingly enough, Crucible, the word, which is our word of the week, was originally a container in which substances, particularly metals, could be heated to extremely high temperatures. And so now it means it can indicate a severe test or trial.
Ooh,
so Crucible.
Interesting.
I don't know if that has anything to do with the book, because I have not read it, but maybe it does. Have you read it?
It brings to mind, I have not read it, which I should have read it, but I have not read it.
Same.
Another one of those things, but it brings to mind like the like the enough pressure makes a diamond type analogy, like a similar thing where a lot of like pressure and heat and basically like trauma will like show you where your true strength is or your true value is. That's what it brings to mind. So
yeah, it is. It's
kind of
like that.
I like the word crucible a lot more, knowing its origin.
Yes, it's a fun word.
It gives it like a new spin on it.
Yeah, I always thought it had religious origins for some reason.
I thought it did too. I think because crucifix and crucible, I was like, that's got to be some kind of
true. That might have something to do with it. And I don't know, maybe the containers that were typically heated were like, alchemy is coming to mind. I'm still not finding any super religious reasons to like heat metals to high temperatures. So, but I don't know. Maybe that's why they called it crucifixion. Which one came first?
That's what I'm wondering. What if crucible was actually the origin word, and then crucifixion came from that in some way?
It's possible.
Or what is it? What is the Latin? Yeah. What is cruce? What is cruce? Where does that come from?
I think it's in Latin. I always think it's crux, which is like the core of something, but I am not sure if that has anything to do with crucifixion.
Now I want to know, because because crucifixion is also like, because you die because it puts, the way you're hung puts pressure on the body.
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
That's true. I bet they're related somehow. I don't know which one came first.
Does anyone out there know? I'm guessing it's Latin. I would guess it's Latin.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah. So if someone out there, is fluent in Latin, that'd be great. If you have any insight on this, we'll definitely
like I want to be your word. but cannot be because Latin is so
like
different.
I want to be, but I have like 100
Yeah.
other commitments, including picking up the rocks from my yard.
Just listen to some Latin podcasts as you pick up rocks.
There we go. I'll just learn Latin while I am just carrying buckets of rocks away from the front yard.
It'll be your Crucible.
Yeah,
test or trial.
Crucible. Ooh, nice work. I did listen to a podcast, I think called Disappearances or The Disappeared or something. Sarah Turney is the host of it, and she goes through like I realized I'm better with I can't listen to a lot of crime podcasts because they make me paranoid. But this one is interesting because like I'm listening to the episodes where she goes over like really old missing persons cases. Not all of them are really old, but they're like the ones I've been listening to are like from like all the way from like the 17th century to like the 1990s. And I'm far enough removed from them and they're missing persons. So you don't actually have a confirmed ending that it's not like wigging me out so much. But anyways, that's what I've been listening to kind of obsessively.
That sounds interesting. It sometimes bothers me when there's not a real ending. But
I thought it was going to really bug me. And then I was like, only this last one I listened to really bugs me because I feel like I know what happened.
And you don't have the confirmation.
No, but a lot of people feel like they know what happened. And the person that I'm thinking of who I think kidnapped and murdered this person, because I think that's what happened. But the police have way more evidence than I have, and he hasn't been arrested. And it was like 20 years ago. So I'm like, clearly there's something I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
missing.
This is not a crime podcast because I couldn't handle that, but I will recommend that podcast, especially if you're someone who enjoys crime podcasts, but you get too paranoid too quickly. This is a good balance, I think. Because also there was like this last one I listened to was about like this adventurer, this like sailor adventurer dude in the 1600s who went missing. So
cool.
That's like obviously so long ago, which is interesting. Anyways,
cool.
So I guess that's our Crucible. That's our word of the week.
Yeah.
Hooray. So do you want to get into the theme for this episode?
Yes. So we're going to talk about the importance of resting, quote unquote, your work in progress.
Your
which
WIP.
Is essentially, yes, your WIP.
Anyone out there has been like, what is a WIP? Because I will say until a month ago, I was like, what is WIP? WIP.
Yeah.
WIP. And then I was suddenly like, work in progress. Oh my God. Yes. Years of my life have suddenly come into focus.
I struggle so much with acronyms. Like slang, I can usually figure out from context, but acronyms, there's nothing there. There's nothing to work with.
No, slang I can generally get from context as well, if it's used in context. It's why when I separate the individual slang words, I'm like, I have no idea what this means. But acronyms, I can't either. And I constantly hear acronyms because, as you guys know, my husband's Army. And so everything is a freaking acronym. And there's like, I asked him the other day about some of them and he's like, yeah. And then it gets complicated because sometimes you have the same acronym for two different things. And I was like,
oh no,
what is the point of that? Why would you do that? So I'm not a fan of acronyms either, but WIP, WIP is work in progress. If anyone out there was as dumb as me, they're like, no one is as dumb as you, Ash.
Everyone's like, we know this, but
they're like, you are approximately 300 years behind.
Yeah. But just in case you didn't know, work in progress.
So anyone else is also 300 years behind.
Yeah, exactly. There could be more of you. So this is about the importance of resting it, which is essentially, I'm just going to come out and say this. I think minimum a month. So essentially when you write your first draft, you should, I'm going to say should, give it space where you don't look at it. You try not to think about it too much so that you can come back to it with a clear head and edit and add stuff as necessary. I think a minimum of a month. What do you think? Yeah.
I think that's a good idea. I think once you've done you finished it, and then I'll traditionally do like a once through, like a shallow edit once through. Because because I want to, because I feel good about being able to check the first edit off my list, but then I say, leave it. What do you think about like resting your work in progress though, while you're still working on the draft, like before it's completed?
Yeah, I think for me, I try not to do
a lot.
Yeah. I try not to do it for too long. Yeah. Because I lose my momentum if I take too much time off. But so like right now I'm working on my current WIP and I'm about I want to say 3/4 of the way through. And I'm kind of like forcibly resting it because I'm distracted by stuff. And it's been kind of a struggle. I'm not sure if it's writer's block or if it's resting, like it's kind of a blurry line between the two.
Yeah.
But I do think that in the meantime, I have had more ideas and things have kind of come into clarity. And that's kind of the point. That's like why you want to do this.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes we as writers can get so excited about an idea that we just kind of, like throw it all up on the page. Right. And then I think a lot of people get super excited about just going to the next step and the next step and not giving it space. And I think that's where quality suffers, because you can't catch that kind of stuff. You can't catch grammar. You can't catch plot holes if you're not giving it space. And so if you need to do that in the middle of the draft, me or give it some space to make sure I don't get too far before I catch this thing, I think that can work. But I think it depends on how long. I don't know that I would leave it for a month, but you can if you find that works.
Yeah. I mean, that would be difficult to leave for like a whole month without working on it if you haven't finished your draft yet. I mean, if you finished your draft, you can definitely leave it for, I don't know, a month. What would you say if you finished your draft? Like, what would you say the maximum time you should leave before going back to it is?
Well, I'm currently going on 3 months. So 3 months. I meant to look at it after 1 month and then I got distracted with a different project. I don't know that there's a limit. I think you just want to be able to still catch yourself when you're excited about it and don't leave it until it's a chore.
I agree.
So whatever that timeline is, I think that'll probably be 3 to 4 months for me.
Yeah. I've also noticed if you go back to it in like 3-month increments while you're working on it every 3 months, because I tend to do this like every 3 months, I'll go look at it again. 6 months, I'll like kind of like want to go tweak a couple things. And then every 9 or 12 months, I want to do like a big rewrite of portions every single time, because every single time I go back, and maybe it's just that I only want to go back to it every 3 months, I see so much potential in different areas. And I don't know if that's just like the magic every 3 months, like my brain like progresses the story a little bit more. Right. But I think going back to it in 3-month increments has worked for me. But the thing is, it's never fully done, which is, I mean, anyone will tell you, like, even when your book is published, you don't really feel like it's done. You'll just keep editing it. Basically, you'll just keep working on it until it's out there and you can't anymore. It's
true. I will say, I think like with my series that, is done, but not published yet, and I'm querying it and working on it. I do feel like there was a difference between when I was editing and when it felt done. Like, I do feel like book 1 feels done now. Like every once in a while I go in and I'll change a couple words, but plot wise and just like, big picture, I do think it's done. I don't think I would add, unless an editor came up with like a really awesome idea, I don't think I would add anything or take anything out. It does feel done on that level, not on like the like tiny detail level, right? Like individual words. I'm still like, I go back and forth.
Complete, but the way you tell it, you could always tweak here and there.
Yes.
Yeah. 100%.
Whereas other books in the series, I'm like, no, this is definitely not done. I still have to do so much work on this. So I do think, and it's hard to say when that moment is, because there are so many moments where you think you've hit that time and then you do another edit and you're like, nope, I was wrong. This is definitely necessary. But I feel like once you're on the other side of it, you do know, but you don't know when you're in it.
Yeah. So you'll know when you get there, but not until then. Yeah.
Yes.
I think you and I differ also because you tend to work on primarily just your primary work in progress, whereas I tend to bounce around a little bit. I usually have one that's my primary, and it's usually the one that I think has the most publishing potential, because the practical side of my brain is like, you have to prioritize that one. But then I usually have like 2 or 3 other little whips that I'm working on here and there, partly just because my brain needs the exercise and needs to not feel like, I don't want it to feel like a chore working on my primary whip. And lately that's been my problem, because I only have that one. And so I actually had a new idea today for another little whip I might start. And there's one I've been thinking of for a while, just to make it feel like fun again, make it feel like it's like a game, to get my brain out of like the work headspace. But then also because then if I stall on one, I can pop into the others, because, it's totally a different area, which is kind of nice.
True.
But I always have one primary, but it's happened a couple times, like twice now, where I've been working on my main whip and then I'll bounce around to one of my other little projects that I've got going on. and like to give that one a little rest, but not to give writing a rest. And then I suddenly find that this other one that I was working on kind of just more for fun than anything else suddenly has this huge potential out of nowhere. And so like that one becomes my main WIP. It's only happened like twice, but I think that there's also that potential. So if you're like, I really in the writing mood, but I feel like I need to give my WIP a rest, but I don't want to give it up, you can. That's fine.
Yes. I think a good point you made too is resting your WIP doesn't mean you have to stop writing. You don't have to take a break from writing. You can. I tend to do that because I just need the break, because when I'm in it, I'm so in it that I need the distance. But you can say, I'm going to work on this. And then when you want to rest it, you can move to something else. You don't have to stop writing if you're in, you know, a good groove or you're just feeling the words flowing. Like, don't abandon that. Don't let that go, because that's
or if
so
you have
rare.
another idea, like if you have another idea, at least you can go get the initial concept on paper. I get that wanting to get that on paper before you lose the inspiration, but you're like, oh, but I don't want to lose the inspiration for my main WIP. That's why you have the one primary one, and then you have the other ones. But that's also because my brain is like, you tend to be, I feel like, more all or nothing. Like you're either reading or you're writing or you're not living the rest of your life, or you're living the rest of your life and you're not writing. True. And it's like one or the other. And whereas I tend to be like 1,000 irons in the fire at once kind of thing. And I have to make myself pick the WIP that I'm going to make my primary. And that's why I use that, like what has the most potential for publishing, in my opinion. And based obviously on like my ongoing research of the market, which is ever changing. But true. Yeah, but I don't think that either one of those is wrong. I think that they're both totally valid. But the key idea there is whether resting means not writing, or resting means turning and giving just your specific one WIP a break and then turning to a different one. It's important to rest, because if you keep trying to power through, you're going to burn out. And then this is the big problem. This is what I ran into. And every couple of years I do it to myself. You're going to burn out and it's not going to be fun anymore. And then you're not going to want to do it anymore until you suddenly want to do it again. But it'll take years to get back to the point where you're like, it's all I want to do again, like to get back to that level of passion you had. So don't do that to yourself. Don't make it not fun anymore. Yeah.
And I think too, it doesn't have to be necessarily on your first draft. So like, for instance, with the one that is not my main series, it's like the standalone that I've been letting rest for a couple months. I wrote it, and then I went immediately back and went through and changed kind of the stuff that had been bugging me. So like there were certain things at the beginning that I wanted to change because they differed by the end, and just little details that I wanted to add while they were still on my mind, because the way that I take notes, I'm not going to remember in 3 months what I meant when I wrote myself notes. So I have to do it early instead of later. And so I did one edit just through, with little details. I didn't necessarily try to fix the grammar or the writing style or anything like that. I just went through for details I thought I would forget. So I technically did one edit before I gave it a rest. You can do 3 or 4 edits if you want to, but don't think that that's going to be the end. You still have to rest it before you come back and do like your quote final edit. And I just think I can't prove this, but I do think sometimes when I see indie books published, the main issue that I can see is this would have been caught if you'd given it a month and then come back and edited it later. And I know the struggle with indie is that you have to get a lot of books out in a year, because that's how you make money on bulk, not necessarily on one book. But I think it's more important to have good quality than to necessarily be making money. And I know that's, people are going to differ on that, and you can do both. But I think sometimes, and I think possibly traditional authors do this too, where you rush into it because you're so excited about the idea. But if you give it that space, not only does the writing style get better, I think, because you just catch things better and you're going to know the book better at that point. I think you catch things like plot holes, and you catch things like character development and all of that. And I think sometimes too, you add things that weren't in your original conception of the idea, but you've been daydreaming for a month or two. And now you're like, hey, I want to include that scene. And then you find the right place for it. And you take another scene and you're like, this isn't really working anymore. I think I can take it out. And I think that's a really necessary part of the process. Even if you're a plotter, even if you're the kind of person that outlines everything, I still think you need to give it that space to let it breathe and let yourself breathe, so that you can get all those details.
Yeah. I've noticed for myself, like when I probably have the most initial clarity when I like at the 6-month mark after I finished a book. I know it feels like a really long time, but I think it takes me about 6 months. I mean, I definitely have go back a little bit in between to like edit here and there, but 6 months of not reading it through again to pick up on those plot holes and stuff. Because when you take that break after you finish it, you're kind of like synthesizing the inherent distance your reader will have from your story. Because and then you're reading it. So when you read it 6 months or 3 months or 1 month later, however long it takes you to synthesize that distance for yourself, then you're reading it as a reader and not as the person who wrote the story and knows all the ins and outs. So then you pick up on the plot holes and you pick up on the inconsistencies, or you pick up on like the weaker areas. So for me, that's usually about 6 months before it's like faded enough in my mind that I can come at it from like a reader who doesn't know all that much about it. So
right. Yeah, because you're going to remember what the plot twist was, and you're going to remember all the characters, but you're not necessarily going to remember that one conversation. And so maybe you read it through and you're like, oh, I have a better line to use here, or something like that.
Exactly. Sometimes it'll be something as dumb as I'm like, hang on. In my head, this character has green eyes. Why did I just say he has blue eyes? Where did I get that wrong in here? And then I have to go find the one instance that I didn't change from when I initially wrote the character with blue eyes. That happens all the time. Yeah. Yep.
That did just happen to me too. I took like 2 days off of writing just a couple weeks ago, and I came back and I was like, I don't remember anyone's eye color. And it's not really important, except I was doing like the aesthetic thing. I was like looking at pictures and I was like, this feels wrong. And it's because they all have blue eyes. And I'm like, something's wrong here. So I had to go back to my notes and I'm like, yeah, they do have brown eyes. I knew it.
Yeah.
So
it's true. I have gotten kind of away from, I used to do like a full rundown on each character when I was writing, like when I'm building them, and it would have like physical characteristics, personality characteristics, history, hopes, fears, dreams, all that stuff. And then I recently in the last couple of years kind of got away from it because some writers who I really respect were basically like, that's not what writing's about. You shouldn't, but your focus shouldn't be on that. It should be on XYZ or whatever. And so I was like, yeah, maybe they're right. Maybe I don't need to do that. But here's why you do it, is because then you can just go to your document and be like, this character has this color hair and this color eyes, because you're going to change it so much. I mean, not all of you, but eventually something's going to change for one or more characters. It's going to shift, and you're going to wish that you had written it down, because now you have to go look through every single instance of that being mentioned. And you're going to be like, Control F, find blue, Control F, find azure.
And then if it's wrong, you never find it.
Sapphire. Exactly. So you have to think of every way you might have described them, which is the worst. So keep your character sheets. I think they're important and useful.
Yeah. And you can change them. You can write it. If you write it out all in detail, or if you just start with the name, as you come up with details and as you put them in, write them down and check it against what you've already done, because that just makes it so much easier on you, because it's so hard to catch the one time where you accidentally said they had blue eyes.
Yeah, it's so true. Hard. And you do. So just like update the character sheet as you go, because I think probably what some of those writers, the points they were making was that characters, when they're inspired, they kind of tend to just do what they want and be who they want. Like you kind of feel like you're just recording what they're doing and who they are, like it's not like you really made them, but still you can go back to that document and change it, and then you can refer to that, and then you still have to go through and change all of it. But I get it. A characters definitely change as you write them. I keep trying to write a character that's not like a stoic badass with a horrible attitude, and I keep doing the same thing because it's who that character wants to be. But that's like a whole other episode. But
we'll talk about that later.
We'll talk about Ash's issues with characters later.
I do think, and I know I said give yourself enough space so you don't lose your momentum or your motivation, but I do think another important thing with resting your WIP is that you don't burn yourself out. Like you said, you can still keep up your excitement over it, because if you work on it every day for months and months and months, you no longer are excited by it, and it no longer feels fun. Like you're going to get to a point regardless where everything feels predictable. And at that point, you just have to realize like it's because you've read it 8 times.
Yeah.
But if you give yourself space from it, you are going to forget details. Like think about your favorite books that you read that you didn't write, and you reread them a couple years later, and there are things you've forgotten, even though you loved it and you thought you remembered every detail. You're still going to come back and not remember those details. And I find that like the most motivating part. When I come to a scene I'd forgotten I'd written, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so good, right?
Yeah.
And it's just exciting, and it can keep up your motivation to want to put in that editing work, because it's such a slog. It can get to a point where it's legitimately work and not fun. And it should be fun generally, but there are going to be edits that are not fun. And to motivate yourself through those, I think that space can really help, because it's still semi new.
Yeah. Some of it will never be fun. Some of it will always feel like work. But I think that's also, at least for me, why I like to keep a couple little like smaller WIPs going. By smaller, I mean not as important as like my big picture one, but because then I can always have something that's fun to do. So I can like do the hard work of the edit or the proofread or whatever it is that I don't want to do, and then I can go reward myself with some fun, like just writing creative, just get it on the page type stuff. And there's also a lot less pressure for those other WIPs that I work on, because I think because in my head they're not my primary, and so I'm like, well, there's no pressure. This might never see the light of day. It doesn't matter if it's, perfect in any way, shape, or form. And I think that's also why occasionally those end up being way better than the one that was my primary, because I've taken all the pressure off. Yeah, exactly. I'm just having a good time. So I think a big part of that is of resting your WIP. The reason you do it is because you just want to still enjoy it. Like, I think it's A, for distance, and B, to preserve the joy of writing. Because if you lose that, no, that's it. Like, you're done. Yeah. There's you really can't come back from that unless you give it years, and then sometimes never. No, you're fine. Your hobby's playing this game. Yeah.
But yeah, it's true. If you lose that, it's really hard to get it back. I don't know that I've ever lost it, but I hear that it's hard to get it back. And I
haven't lost it, but it's faded for me. I mean, it's finally coming back now to where I just want to write, but I just don't have time. But for like a year ago, probably, it was really faded. And I mean, I still knew that I loved to write, but I just had so much going on. And also, all I could think about was, I need to go back and edit my WIP again. I need to go back and edit my WIP again. And that was just sounded like so much work and so not fun that I just didn't do it. And I didn't start anything new, which I think I had gotten out of my habit of just sitting down and starting a new project, even if I only write a chapter of it, just so that it's there on the page and I've had fun. So I'm trying to get back to doing that, because it's what keeps you going, is that you like to do it.
It's true. I think sometimes it can come down to it can come down to the idea of whether or not you enjoy writing or editing more or equally. So this has been going around book talk, where people are like, oh, I hate editing, and I was wondering, I was like, why don't I like these videos? They kind of bother me. And it's because I think I like the editing process better than the writing process. And I think it's because writing is so hard because there's nothing there.
Yeah.
And so then you have to like create it. And then once it's there, I'm like, great, I have clay, I can mold it. But creating the clay is very hard. And so, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people enjoy the writing process more, and that's great, but I don't. And I do enjoy the writing process. There are days when you get a lot of words out and you're like, oh my gosh, they're all so good, I'm so excited about it. I necessarily burn out on editing as much as I burn out on writing. So I mean, I don't know what this has to do with resting my WIP. Does that mean I should rest it for shorter periods of time? I don't necessarily think so. Maybe it means I should start to rest it in the middle. I don't know, but
I don't know.
I think that plays into how long maybe you should leave it. If you really hate editing, maybe leave it a little longer so that you you get back to that original love that you had for the story.
See, I was going to say the opposite. If you hate editing, make yourself get it out of the way, and then wait, and then go. Because I most recently have decided, I think, because with my last WIP that I finished, I was also working as a freelance editor. I used to love editing. I probably like 5 years ago, I probably was one of those people who would say, I prefer editing over writing. I prefer that part of the process. I would say after working as an editor, I think it just kind of burnt me out a little bit on editing. Yeah. So now it's not as fun for me, which is also why I kind of stepped back from writing, was because I knew I was going to have to edit whatever I wrote. And I didn't want to edit the last thing that I wrote. But if I just make myself just sit down and get it out of the way, then I can feel like I can move on and play with my other WIPs more, or I can give it that WIP that distance that it needs to go back to it 6 months later and read it and enjoy it as a reader. And also, you know, identify all the plot holes and stuff. But I mean, that's also probably has to do with how you deal with conflict in your life. If you're someone who kind of procrastinates it, then I don't know, because I feel like the solution to that is also to just make yourself do it, but I'm probably not a good perspective on that, because I tend to just be
follow
like,
that. No, but it's good advice.
Well, it's like what you do. It's like, how do you eat your food? Do you eat the thing that you dislike most? Do you eat that first to get out of the way, and then you get to enjoy the rest of the food that you like? That's what I do. So that's how I feel about editing.
Yeah.
But if you don't, and you're like, I would rather do all the enjoyable stuff first and then like eat my asparagus at the end, that's fine too. Just you still have to do it.
Yeah.
So
you still have to eat the asparagus.
But if you want to wait and you want to like take a couple hours so that you don't associate it with your meal, and you want to take a break, that's fine. You still have to. Yes. But you want to take a break and eat it as a snack later because it's better than ruining your dinner with it. I get that. That's fine.
Yeah. I like this metaphor.
Thank you. I'm hungry. Can you tell?
I know, right? Darn it, I had a point.
I honestly don't know how you could top my asparagus point. So
I mean, that's so true. I probably had a point, and then you're like, asparagus. And I was like, darn it, I'll never top that. Erasing all that. I guess I was just gonna say, the reason I enjoy editing so much, I think, is because it does feel like reading. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it feels like reading a book, even though I know it's gonna happen.
Yeah, that's how I feel about like line editing. When it gets to proofreading, I don't enjoy it as much. I do enjoy developmental editing and line editing for that reason.
Yeah.
Like the first round. The second round, because I always am doing several rounds of line editing, the second round and on is not fun anymore for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one where I tend to start putting that off, which is weird because it's not my instinct, because I make myself do the initial, all of them, including the proofread, which why am I proofreading something?
I was going to say, you really can't do that first, because that has to be, I mean, you can do it multiple times across your edits, depending on how many you do. Like, I'm the kind of person that does like 12 edits or significantly more. So like if you do every third edit is a proofread, that's fine. But it does have to be your last step. That is the last edit you do. So there's really no way to do the thing you dislike first, if that's the thing you dislike.
I think I tend to do 4 or 5 line edits. And then, but the thing is, I keep like an idiot assuming that every line edit I do is the last line edit I'm going to do. So then I do another proofread. And then I'm like, oh, I hate this. And then I'll start to put it off because I feel like I've already done it. Like I'll do the hard thing once and then I'm like, I already did it. I don't want to do it again.
I'll do like the proofread and then I'll add a scene and I'm like, this is so good. And then I'll read that one scene and I'm like, yeah, this clearly has not been proofread. Now I have to do this all over again.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. But I think if I just get back to having multiple WIPs at once, then I think I'll prevent a lot of that feeling of burnout and that feeling of, I don't want to do it, because I can reward myself with the thing I do want to do.
Yes. Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have such good ideas.
I know. I guess I just feel so strongly that people need to rest their WIPs. And I think this is a thing. And I'm not sure if people on Book Talk and Instagram just don't talk about it. It's possible, but it just seems like no one does this. And I'm not necessarily saying you're wrong. I just feel really strongly that it can only benefit you. So
I agree. I totally agree. And you and I are very different writers too. And even our approach to resting your WIP is different because we're different.
There are many ways.
Yeah, but I think we both agree it's extremely important to rest your WIP. If you don't do it, it's going to only eventually lead to burnout and or a poor quality of the story that you're trying to tell. So it's good for your story. It's good for you as a writer. It's good for your readers. So just give your WIP a rest. Give your WIP a rest.
Sleep.
Let it sleep. Let it take a nap. And then also you go take a nap because you probably haven't in a while.
That's true. Give yourself some good rest today.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anything else?
No, not I.
All right. Not I.
Not I.
It's pretty much a simple topic. I just feel like a PSA was necessary. Like, please rest your WIPs.
This is really a PSA. Your WIPs need rest, please.
Please put them down for their nap, guys. Come on. They are children.
These are children. This is WIP abuse, honestly.
Yeah. Cannot.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on.
Anyways, I was gonna just ask. I know you've already talked about it a little bit because you said you haven't done a little bit much writing because of the puppies, but do you want to just give us an update where you're at with your writing?
Yeah. So I think, like I said, I think I'm about 3/4 of the way through. I did realize, I don't know if I said this yet, that I wrote about 70,000 words before realizing that was really just the first half of the book, and that I had been focusing too much on word count and not on the plot, which is weird. And I think this is another symptom of me being on Book Talk now, is people are so much like, I wrote 10,000 words today. And I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. And back when I was writing my other book in January, I did it in 6 days. And I don't say that to brag, but I think the reason that I was able to do that is because I was focused on completing certain scenes every day and not word count. Yeah. And for this one, something was just off. I think I'd been seeing too many people talking about their word counts. Yeah. And also April is Camp NaNoWriMo, which is like NaNoWriMo on like a small scale. So like writing a novel in a month kind of a thing. And I just got so hung up on word count that by the time I got to 70,000 words, I'm like, half of this is filler. No. I haven't even gotten to like the main conflict of the book yet. And it's not that they're bad scenes. It's that a lot of them are just way too long. And I had been extending them to meet a word count for the day. So I've been stopping that. And so everything now feels like it's going really fast because I'm not using as many words for scenes that I would have taken a lot before. And then I'm on this one scene that I'm struggling with it because there's like this, it's like the love interest thing. And there's this, I don't want to give too much away, but there's like this complication with them being together. But I'm struggling to write that because I normally don't write things like that into it. Anyway, Ash will tell you, I had trouble with my morally gray bad boy character earlier this week.
So much fun for me to
He gave me wonderful advice. If you guys need bad boy advice, Ash is your person.
She texted me like one question. I was like, allow me to respond in a novel with all of my opinions about this type of character.
So many answers. And I whittled it down to a list. I'm like, okay, these are the things that are required for morally great bad boys.
Her notes she took were so like, she totally like, you want her to take notes for you in class because she totally like nailed it. And I was just like rambling about my adoration for the morally great characters.
You need Ash to teach the class and you need me to take your notes and then you'll be set.
It's true. But it was funny too, because I was relaying some of that conversation to Kendall because, you know, she's also like you, and where she's like, she's not really attracted to like the morally gray characters or the bad boys. Like she just doesn't really get it. So I was like telling you stuff that I'm like, see, it's when they do this that it's just really sexy. So even though you know that that's not supposed to be the guy, you're like, yeah, but he's really attractive though.
Right. So, but what if he was?
But what if? And so you and Kendall both were like, I just don't see how people find that attractive. And that is so foreign to me. I was like, I don't understand. I just said that the morally great character did this or that. How is that not attractive? And you guys are like, no, that's rude. And I'm like, I just don't understand.
Gosh, this is so much my problem with morally gray bad boys. And so many people love them. And they're like, remember when he did this? I'm like, yeah, the time I wanted to slap him and never see him again because he was being a total jerk. And everyone's like, yeah, oh my gosh, he's so great. And I'm like, please leave me alone. I can't handle that.
There's definitely a bad boy spectrum, and you and Kendall are on the one far side of it. I wouldn't say I'm far on the other side of it, because when it gets, this is why I'm a fan of morally great, and I'm not a fan of like actually bad boys, right? Because that morally gray part is with a sweet spot for me. But definitely some people, like a guy on a book will be like mean, but he's written sexy, but he's just an asshole. Excuse me,
and I'm
language,
like,
but it's true.
Big no, can no longer enjoy these scenes. Pass.
See, I pass on that as well. That's not attractive to me. I don't like it when they are mean. But the thing is, there's like that when you walk up the line to mean, like that whole area, that big gray area, that is my space. And I think a lot of us, I would say that's where a ton of people reside.
I would
it's
agree.
Just so funny. But I can see why you like the good guys. And I can see why people like the bad boys, I guess, because I'm in the middle. So it's so foreign to me that you guys are like, I just don't understand why that character being rude is attractive. And I'm like, well, I can't explain
like,
it.
It is.
It just is. So I have a lot of people to back me up on this. So anyways, it was great fun because I'm trying to think, for all of my love for like the morally great bad boys, I'm trying to think if I've really written them. I kind of write snarky guys, but I don't know that any of them are really morally gray. My guys tend to be pretty snarky, but
see, I like sarcasm, smirk thing and that kind of stuff, but that can be in a good guy. I just don't like it when they're, when like their first encounter is the guy being a jerk. I know this is going to sound weird, but I'm always like, okay, pass, like not the love interest for me. If you're not nice up front, I now no longer trust your motives, because so many of them are like, I'll be nice now that I'm attracted to you. And I'm like, that's just a jerk move. You should be nice to everyone.
It's true. But you're assuming
that's where
that
my
they're
line
only
is.
being nice because they're attracted to the person versus maybe they're being nice because now they know that person a little more and feel safe being more themselves. See, that's the way that I read that.
Yeah, I never consider that. That's a good point. That's possible.
I mean, I think that's why, speaking for the lovers of the morally gray, that's why we like it. We're not cool with the guy suddenly only being nice because he's attracted. It's because he feels like he can trust her with his real heart, you know, like with who he really is.
Yeah. You know what else bothers me? And I've been seeing this idea again across book talk, where it's this idea that like the hero will sacrifice the people he loves to save the world, and a villain will sacrifice the world to save the people he loves. And I'm like, strong hero, I do not want you to destroy the world for me, because if you do that, what do I have to live in? Like, that's not a good world for me. I would rather be dead and everyone else alive than the reverse.
It's not about us actually wanting that, because we can see that that's horrible, but it's about respecting that kind of love and that kind of somebody would so put you first that they would put you first before everything else versus they would put everything else before you, which there's obviously a healthy medium where some things are more important than you, like, you know, the fate of the world, and some things aren't as important. But heroes do tend to be one end of the spectrum where they'll sacrifice you and everything, even for their quote unquote cause, which I think is actually more villainous. See, I don't like that.
I like it.
You shouldn't sacrifice me for a cause unless it's like
if it's a true good cause.
Yes. But if only the hero thinks it's a true good cause, or a couple, I actually think that's a gray area. I think that
it depends.
That whole dilemma is that they are walking that line between hero and villain is what I feel.
Maybe that's where my morally gray sweet spot needs to be. Maybe I need more book with that kind of person where I'm willing to do anything for this goal, but maybe it's not the best goal.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, see, there you go. But see, and then you have a villain also, but because it's the bad boys who will sacrifice the world to save you, which is it's an admirable spirit. We don't approve of the action. We still all are like, no, you should save the world. But that somebody would care about you that much. That's the part that we're like, oh my God. Someone would put us first. Oh my God. It's for those of us with issues. So
I guess I feel like if I shared the cause with the hero, right? I'm like, I want you to go for the cause. Like, that's why we're together. We have the same stance.
Well, just because somebody wants to sacrifice their cause to save me doesn't mean I would let them.
Right.
I would die for the cause as well.
Right.
But the spirit of them caring about me that much is like, oh, that's sweet though. I'm not going to let you. I'll still go die to save the world. But it's very sweet of you to say so.
It's very sweet of you to offer. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really what it is. I think I would say probably most of the girls who are like really into that quote. That's why we're like, aw, no, but aw, that's so sweet. Yeah,
that's fair. All right. See, Ash is good at putting this in perspective for me, because a lot of times I see people support this and I'm like, these people are psychopaths. What is wrong with you? And then Ash explains it and I'm like, oh, okay. I kind of see it. Not for me, but I kind of see it. So hopefully
it's not your
hopefully
jam,
my bad boy character is better now, but now I'm struggling with my good guy character because I'm so much on this like bad boy kick, if that's what I can call it. That's so hilarious. It's been a slow, I've been on the same scene for about 3 days now. Just because there's, just small things, but I think if I give myself a couple days, I just rest it a little bit, I think it'll be fine. So,
well, I do have to say though, if you were like, you should be just as much on your morally gray character side as your other guy's side, like as the writer, because then your readers are going to be like, oh my God, I don't know which one to pick. And they are both equally good options in one way or another. Even if obviously the good guy is the actually good option, they should still have like equal points for appeal. Even if it's
and that's what I'm
totally different audiences.
Yeah, I'm trying to achieve that, but it's so hard for me because I'm so strongly on one side. So I'm like, I need someone else to love this person and help me write him so that I can make him appealing and not obviously the one she's not gonna pick. Yeah.
So see, I like
it's a work in progress.
Too. Yeah. I like a good
Yeah.
gay character too. I really am very in the middle of that. Because I definitely have lines where if a character crosses, I'm like, well, now you're garbage to me. So
yeah, we're done. Bye.
yeah, which is I had issues with obviously Sarah J. Maas or Moss or however you pronounce her name.
Yeah.
Definitely, I feel like she plays with that line a lot in the Court of Thorns and Roses series, which is not my jam. Because I'm like,
that's my
that
biggest
line is
issue with
there
it
for a reason. I might like to tiptoe up to the edge of it, but I don't move the lines.
I could literally go on about this. If you're interested, there are Catherine's Corner episodes specifically about this. Also, I'm thinking this week, my Catherine's Corner episode is going to be follow-up points on why I didn't like the Court of Thorns and Roses series, because stuff has been coming up again on Book Talk. Book Talk keeps showing me videos about these books, and I don't understand why it can't grasp that I'm scrolling past them immediately for a reason.
You're like,
so I have more points.
Want this.
Yeah,
good.
I have a few more points to make. So if you guys are curious, there will be about an hour and a half worth of content.
All the ACOTAR fans have already logged off and reported.
I know.
Us.
They're like, we're done with this.
Yeah, look, like, this is the worst writing podcast
don't
ever.
like them. I like Throne of Glass. I mean, it wasn't my super favorite, but it was good.
When I read it, and now my Goldfish brain has completely forgotten it, but when I read it, I remember thinking this is the first YA fiction I've read, or I guess it's really NA fiction I've read in a long time that I was all about. Like, I loved it. So I don't remember it now, but apparently I loved it and I want to read it again. So huge fan of Throne of Glass. I don't know what happened between Throne of Glass and ACOTAR.
The quality is just so different. Like Throne of Glass,
quality.
I feel like character development in Throne of Glass was on point. So I read the first 4. So good. Everyone changes so much, but it all makes so much sense. And then we get to Court of Thorns and Roses, and I'm like, why is everyone acting like this? None of this makes sense.
None of it makes sense. It's very confusing. And that's the thing is, if an author can pull off something that even I find questionable, that's not really like my jam, but they do it well, I'm like, respect. Yep. Okay. It's the quality that's alarming. It's not even like that the characters are, the morally gray characters are,
right.
They're not just morally gray.
Yep. They're like, I'm evil, but also sometimes I'm nice. So that makes it okay that I'm evil.
I'm
like,
evil,
wow,
but
no.
Occasionally I'm nice. And that is why I'm sexy. And you guys should be on my side.
And so many people are like, yes. And I'm like, pass.
Yeah, I'm like,
please
pass,
stop.
But I see it. Pass, but I understand.
Yeah. Anyway, how's your writing going? Was it helpful to help me?
It was actually really helpful to help you. Yeah, because it got me excited again. So if anyone wants to talk like morally gray characters or really anything that you guys are struggling with, you can join our writers group on Patreon. It's Story Sirens Studio. That's our production company. But you guys can join the writers group for free because this is so fun for me to get to help other people with their stories. Like I don't have like insight into everything. Like if you were like, hey, I want the appeal of like just like nice dudes, I'd be like, and what else about them?
And what else?
And like it's just not my
there.
It's just not my what else is there? He's a nice guy. That's not my vibe. I actually have gone on long tirades about that before. It's not really like my scene. I don't really understand it that well because I need there to be so much more to a character, and there should be, but it's just obviously not my area of strength. But if you want to talk morally gray characters or even villains, I think I have some good insight into that. Not pro villains, like we don't want villains in relationships. No. But if you want to write, like a darkling character who you're like is irresistibly intriguing, even though we're never on his side, but he is so damn intriguing and a little bit sexy.
You're so close to being on his side.
Yes. If you guys want to talk about those characters, I am here for it. Or whatever else it is you're struggling with. Like if you're working on a particular setting or genre that's new. I'm struggling with third person because I'm trying to write my primary WIP right now is in third person, which is also why I'm putting it off because I'm so intimidated by it. So that's why I keep coming back to you guys with my third person questions and anxiety. But so that was definitely inspiring to get to help with your character. If you want to talk about him anymore, I just want to talk about him. So
good. It was helpful to me. So
I'm so glad. And I have, I just had a dream. I think it was last night that I was like, this would be a really good story. And I came up with like a really like interesting way to tell it. And I don't think it'll give anything away. So I think this is going to be my new like playground WIP. Like I have like 2 like of my like play WIPs now. One of them was from a dream I had a couple years ago that I've been meaning. It's like a futuristic book about assassins that I've been meaning to just get started on because it'll be fun. Or maybe it's more like science fiction, actually. Science fiction assassins. I think it is. But
Cool.
I still remember the dream because it was so interesting.
Nice.
I think a lot of my best stories have come from dreams also. So that's not strange for me.
Right.
And then this one I had last night. So I won't give it too much away, but I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be really fun, and I'm going to have this interesting way to approach it. It's going to be half written in flashback, like a full 50-50 in flashbacks.
Yeah.
But you're not going to like, basically slowly the flashbacks are going to reveal answers to what's going on in the present day, but you won't have the final answer until the very end, revealed but that one won't be revealed via flashback. That'll be revealed in like actual life or whatever. But because ML Rio in If We Were Villains did this so well, where the story was, though that story was actually primarily written in flashbacks. So maybe I want to do primarily flashbacks, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. It was like primarily flashbacks. And then she would like pop into present tense. And every time she popped into the present, it would just bring up like 20 more questions. And so you'd slowly get the answers.
How did this go to this?
Yeah, cool. Exactly. Hers is kind of like a mystery though. Like a mystery thriller. This is like a fantasy type thing. So, but I'm excited because I've never written a book like that, but I feel that I can write it in first person. So I'm not anxious about it. That one and the Assassin
you get in your
book,
comfort zone.
Yeah, exactly. The Assassin book actually should maybe be in third person as well, but because it's just like my play one, I'm like, I'm not, for some reason, I'm not worried about it. Like if I do a crappy job of writing it in third person, I do a crappy job. Doesn't matter. Probably no one's going to see it. So I'm excited about that. So I want to get started on those because even though I'm really busy, that's the kind of thing I could sit down and just write a couple pages of. And it doesn't matter if I lose my train because it's probably not going anywhere. So.
Oh my gosh. I love that. I love experimental books. It's so fun, especially because like that tactic is probably used a lot in like mysteries. So like putting it in a different genre would be really cool to see.
Yeah, exactly. And I've never done anything like this before. And I used to write mysteries for, I don't know if I ever said this on the pod. I used to ghostwrite mysteries for because it was ghostwriting, I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. I'm not allowed to say which publishing company it was for, but it was for a publisher. It was for a industry name in the genre is what they said I was allowed to say. Okay. But they were these tiny little mystery novels. Like they were very short. They were very hallmarky. So I had like certain things I could and couldn't put in. So they were not allowed to be graphic at all. And so they were like the most basic mysteries. Like I don't think it was hard to figure out. Here are 10
people in the room. Who do you think it was?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I didn't put all that much effort into it because of the genre. It doesn't require it. But that was as close as I got to mysteries. But ever since then, I have realized I do really enjoy the mystery genre. So I want there to be some of that element in this, but it's not going to be a mystery. It is going to be fantasy, I think. Cool. Or maybe like a dystopian fantasy. Ooh. I think a dystopian fantasy. Yeah. Yes. Anyways, I literally just like clasped my hands together like an animated princess. So I'm excited. And it's good to be excited about writing again.
Yes. Agreed. Yeah. If you guys are ever feeling like you're not excited about it anymore, it is okay to take some distance, work on a different project, or don't work on anything at all and let yourself feel that joy again. Especially if you're not already published, you have time. You can take the time now to just like let yourself feel the joy of it. I mean, you do have to put work in, but work can still be joyful. Yeah. So yeah, I actually think that taking intentional steps to enjoy writing, whether that is for me, sometimes that's buying a whole series of books I can barely afford and reading them, even though they're not in my to-do list and I barely have time. Sometimes it's doing that, or sometimes it's working like on a new WIP that I know will never see the light of day. But part of your work as a writer, if you need like a reason to justify it, is to preserve your love for it as an art and as a pastime. So like if you need a justification, there's your justification. I don't think you actually need one, but if you are like me and you're like, but it's not on my to-do list and I have important work things, here's your job. Here's your task for the next like week to month. Okay. Or however long it takes. Find a way to love writing again, because until you do, and unless you do, you're not going anywhere. You're not going to be successful working in it. So find a way to love it again. Which is actually really fun to put on your to-do list. So it is. It's a fun thing. And it is productive. It doesn't feel productive, but so many steps in writing don't feel productive, like the daydreaming process. You have to do it. It is part of the work, but it's the fun part of the work.
Nothing about writing actually feels productive except for those moments where you are just pounding up the word count.
Mm-hmm.
But those are just like moments. And other
That's
than
true.
that, it doesn't feel productive at all.
Yeah. So find the moments of joy, because that is all you have to carry you through until you get like external people telling you you're good at it.
It's true. The external affirmation is nice, but you always want to take steps to preserve your inherent love for it, so that even when you don't have that external affirmation, you still love what you're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyways,
this is just like a big PSA episode.
It really is just a PSA episode. Enjoy what you're doing. Take steps to enjoy what you're doing. There's no pressure, and rest your WIP. God, please rest your WIP, and also go take a nap yourself.
Yes,
you probably need one.
Good summary.
Thank you. This time I did the notes.
Yes, this was such a change. I don't even know how to process this.
Yeah. Well, anyways, if you guys just can't stand being away from us for a whole week, don't worry. You don't have to. Catherine's Corner episodes come out every Monday, where Catherine, aka Lewis, aka Karissa Harlow, goes over a book of her choosing from a writer's perspective. So she'll go over the good and the bad of it. She's obviously already done some on ACOTAR. She sounds like she might do another one on ACOTAR. So if you too dislike ACOTAR, then you've got this for you.
You belong here.
Maybe you will learn something new about it from a writer's perspective. But she's done a lot of books on there. You can also follow us on social media. We are on Instagram. We are on TikTok. We are the Scriptarian Society. Karissa posts all these great funny videos about life as a writer, so go check those out on TikTok. She posts like little tidbits from the episodes on Instagram, so go check those out. Like, honestly, I think that they're two great resources. TikTok lifts you up, and Instagram just gives you input during the week to keep you going. I think that they're fabulous. I follow them, and because I don't run the social media for this podcast, it's all like brand new to me every time, so it is delightful and inspiring. So many kudos to Lewis for that. So you can also, like I said before, if you want to support the pod, or you just want to join the writers group, you can do that on Patreon, Story Siren Studio. You can also visit us online at storysirenstudio.com. Our episodes are on there. That's our production company's website. You can also check out That Pretentious Book Club. That's our sister podcast. It is a comedy podcast about books, keyword comedy, because lately we've been getting some people be like, why don't you talk about the book more? And I'm like, because we're too busy being funny. So that's why. But you guys can go check it out. And it's not actually that pretentious. Actually, the Scriptarian Society is probably more realistically pretentious.
It's because I'm here.
You're like, ACOTAR is not actually well written. Exactly. And everyone's like, she's pretentious.
And I'm like, yes, I am. Thank you.
You're like, yes, and what about it?
Yes.
Anyways, we have some cool merch on storysirenstudio.com, so go check it out. Some fun tank tops for summer, a mouse pad to assist you in your writing so your little wrist doesn't get too worn out on the tabletop. Go check it out, as you guys can support us there if you want. Otherwise, if you guys want to see us do something specific in our episodes or on Patreon or social media, if there's a specific topic you want us to cover, we are so psyched to do so. Simply message us. You can message us on Instagram. You can message us on TikTok. You can email us at contact@storysirenstudio.com. We'll see it. We'll respond. If we've got time, we'll talk about it in an episode. If enough people send in their little queries, we could even add like a little like query corner of our episodes where we talk about stuff that you guys bring up, which would be great, because this is just a writers group. So whatever you guys want to bring to the table, we will serve. So I think that's everything.
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay. Well then, until next week, everybody, keep writing.
And we'll see you on the next page.